ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Cocktail Kitchen, our second adventure into the wonderful world of mixing spirits.
Hooray!
So, Kevin,
Yes.
we have been talking a lot about what kinds of cocktails you should or could order when you're out, and what kinds of cocktails you might not want to. I think on our way here today, you were actually asking me about the Bronx cocktail, weren't you?
I believe I was, yes.
What Kevin asked me was, is this a drink that he should order?
Is this a drink?
Is it a drink? We'll find out. We'll make it and then see if we can drink it. If it rejects our mouths and goes screaming out the door, it'll turn out that it probably wasn't a drink and was actually some sort of creature that we concocted in this laboratory. Okay. But assuming that it is a drink, the question is, should we order it when we're out at a bar or not? Well, this is a drink that I think perfectly encapsulates all of the different principles that we were talking about that bars should uphold. It's made with gin, sweet and dry vermouth, and orange juice, which I have squeezed beforehand to save us some time. So now, I think the first important thing to remember is the question of balance, of measurement. I'm actually going to be using a shot glass to measure the amount that I am pouring. A shot glass, in America at least, measures 1.5 ounces, so that's a good point of reference.
The more you know.
The more you know. The issue of measurement might not come into play as much here as with some other drinks. People measuring at a bar for a drink like this, not that big a problem. It's not one of those things where the proportions have to be exact. But there's a tendency, especially at places that are, let's say, more restaurants without a very active bar, to, in vermouth-based drinks, use much less than the amount that we're using right now. Kevin, do you like vermouth in your drinks?
I prefer sweet vermouth over dry vermouth personally, but
Sweet vermouth over dry vermouth. Why is that?
I prefer sweet things.
I think that is a very healthy approach to have when approaching cocktails. We're using both sweet and dry. The combination of gin and vermouth that's both sweet and dry makes this kind of like a perfect martini, but slightly different, so we'll see. We are using a 1/2 ounce of each. These here are pretty fresh bottles. I have taken them out of my refrigerator. We did not just open them today, but they are well stored. At a bar that doesn't use vermouth a lot, you might not find that, and you might also want to use the right cap. You might not find that, so getting a drink that's so heavy in vermouth might be a bit of a risk. So that's two elements.
Why would it be much of a risk?
Well, as we discussed earlier, at those bars that don't use vermouth very much, there is a tendency for vermouth to not be replaced that frequently. Mm-hmm. So it gets a bit older. You don't like old vermouth, do you?
Well, I would assume that with most alcohols, age is a good thing.
I think that's a very interesting assumption, and I think it's definitely true of cocktails that involve spirits that are aged. I think that the opposite is true of spirits that are oxidized. I think it would be very interesting if you had a bar bragging about its 100-year-old bottle of vermouth charging $100 a glass for a taste of some nice old oxidized wine.
Yum.
And I'm going to be using a 1/2 ounce of orange juice. This is something else that I squeezed fresh. You want to describe how we squeeze orange juice, around here at least? Well,
we don't have a big enough squeezer for oranges. We have it big enough for limes. So what we had to do was kind of MacGyver it. We took the half of an orange and squeezed it directly into the cup with our hand.
Yeah, and I think that that's a pretty useful technique. I also have a reamer that I'll use sometimes, but for the most part, I say go with what works. And it might not be always the most efficient, but to get a 1/2 ounce out of half an orange, you're pretty much set. So, we're going to add our ice here.
Yum.
Another thing at a bar that doesn't necessarily use orange juice a lot You might not have fresh juice, you might have juice from a carton.
Tropicana?
Tropicana, which I think to drink is not bad, but which loses a lot of that citrus zing that you really need, because that's what's going to be counteracting the herbal elements of the vermouth and the botanicals of the gin, balancing it out. And this really is an example of balance at work. Now, this right here is a Bronx, or it will be once we've poured it. If we were to add a dash of bitters, it would become an income tax. And an income tax is also a lovely drink. So, last week I used this Boston shaker as well. If you want to make sure that your Boston shaker has a good seal for shaking, just hold it by the glass. If the bottom stays up, then you're good. As I said earlier...
Be ready to catch it if the bottom does not stay on, though.
Definitely, and that's why you always want to hold it like this, so that, and hold it by the bottom, as opposed to like this, just throwing it at your friends. That way, if the seal breaks, any splashback happens onto you, and not all over your kitchen, or all over your friends, or all over your guests at a bar. As we said, my biggest pet peeve at a bar is seeing people take a shaker, perhaps make a seal on it, perhaps not, hold it like this, and just go like that, and say it's shaken. That does nothing. I feel like these ingredients have been warming up already, so I'm going to just finish this up quickly.